This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Well, the 2024 presidential race is becoming more crowded. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and former Vice President Mike Pence have both joined the Republican race. Meanwhile, the philosophy professor and civil rights activist Cornel West has announced he's running for president as a candidate with the People's Party. In a short video released Monday, Dr. West criticized both the Democratic and Republican parties.
We're not talking about hating anybody. We're talking about loving. We're talking about affirming. We're talking about empowering those who have been pushed to the margins. Because neither political party wants to tell the truth about Wall Street, about Ukraine, about the Pentagon, about big tech.
West's announcement surprised many political observers. In 2008, he endorsed Barack Obama, but later became a vocal critic of the Obama-Biden administration. In 2016 and 2020, he backed Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primaries. Cornel West is now running as a member of the People's Party, which was founded by a former staffer of Sanders after the 2016 election as an alternative to the two-party system. This will be the first time the party has fielded a candidate for president. According to the New Republic, the People's Party has ballot access in barely a handful of states. Dr. West is one of the nation's most recognized public intellectuals. He's a professor of philosophy and Christian practice at Union Theological Seminary. He formerly taught at Princeton and Harvard universities. He's joining us now from Irvine, California. Cornel West,
welcome
back to Democracy Now! It's great to have you with us. Can you talk about why you've decided to run for president of the United States?
First, Sister Amy, I want to salute you. You are an exemplar of longevity, of integrity, and consistency. And, you know, we go back many, many decades. So I just want to always begin on that note. You're putting a smile on Brother George and Sister Dorothy's face, your precious parents. But no, my announcement of running for president of the United States to be head of the empire, to help dismantle it in such a way that poor and working people would be at the very center, at the very core of our vision of what a good society actually is. It has to do, as you can imagine, with these very bleak times, these very desperate times. So it's a kind of act of desperation. You know, I'm 70 years old. I've been at this for 55 years, and I have a calling that flows out of the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel and Edward Said and Chief Joseph and Dorothy Day and Grace Lee Boggs and Louisa Marino. All of those are the best of America. And I think we're at such a low point that America needs to be reintroduced to its best. And its best has always been the movements for justice, the struggles for freedom, the solidarity based on a fundamental commitment to the dignity of those Sly Stone calls everyday people. And there's no doubt in my mind that the two-party system now is a major impediment for the empowerment of poor and working people. I'm thoroughly convinced that, of course, the neo-fascist Republican Party has already made it very clear that they're tied to big business and big military, big tech, and so forth. And the milquetoast neoliberal Democratic Party strikes me as being incapable of taking seriously the fundamental needs of poor and working people, not just here, but around the world. The militarism abroad, $7 billion frozen for the brothers and sisters in Afghanistan, and what's been AFRICOM in Africa, and what's been going on in the Middle East. Thank God that you keep track of the precious Palestinian brothers and sisters and all the hell that they're catching. You have it every day, and I thank God that you do. Why? Because Palestinian peoples deserve to have a visibility in terms of their suffering and ways in which they can attempt to get out from under. Same would be true, of course, for our Jewish brothers and sisters in Russia or in a France, where they their rights are being violated. We're wrestling with organized greed. We're wrestling with institutionalized hatred. We saw that with our precious gay brothers and lesbian sisters and queer siblings in the earlier report. But it's also a matter of routinized indifference. There's an indifference to the plight of the vulnerable. More and more, it's becoming not just a fad and a fashion.
And that's a great point that he makes here. It's not we just don't. It's an indifference. It's not even an acknowledgement of existence. It's wanting to wipe, for example, we don't want to fix the homeless crisis. We just want people to be out of our sight. That's the indifference that, to me, you feel. It's like, and it's applied to all other topics, not just unhoused, but just us in general. Oh, you guys need something again. The American people need something again. Damn, we got all these guns and bombs to buy. That's what it feels like. Like we're in the way of you spending our money. So to that point that Cornell makes here, I'm gonna fast forward because he rips apart the Democratic Party and the Republican parties. Let's listen to this next question because he does get to talking about parties.
Yes.
Cornell, you talk about militarism. I want to ask you about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In March of last year, you told the New Yorker, we must try to stop the war, recognizing that the American empire has little or no moral authority when it comes to violation of international law and the overthrow of national sovereignty, as in Latin America, the Middle East, and Asia. You've also called Putin, you've been severely critical of President Putin for the invasion. Talk about your views on what happened, what is happening, and how the war needs to end.
Well, one, I think you have the clash of two empires. The Russian Empire is a deeply wounded empire. It's had its territory cut back. Of course, its economy is shrinking. And then you've got the American Empire, which is the most powerful empire in the history of the world. In fact, it's the 68th empire out of the 70, going back to the beginning of the human species. And so on the one hand, you have the promise of the American Empire to the elites in the Russian Empire: we will not move an inch. And within decades, 14 of the satellite countries of the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, are part of NATO. That there's missiles right on the borders and boundaries of the Russian Empire. Now, we know empires behave like empires. I mean, if there's missiles in...
What strikes me as I'm listening to Dr. Cornell West is that the person who has the best critique of the empire, the best analysis, and who can express it the best is the one who's saying, I'm going to rub two sticks together to win this presidency. And that's what he's doing by picking the People's Party. That is so frustrating to finally get a candidate like him and to pick this god-awful party. You know what I mean? Like, what's the effective, not how it makes you feel, what's the effective use of his critique if you're not on the ballot in 47 states? No, we're waiting for a candidate first. No. Green Party is on 38 ballots already. They don't have a candidate. So miss me with that. So let's continue to the next question she gets to here.
He chose you as one of the people to write the Democratic Party platform. Have you talked to him about your campaign, you deciding to go outside the two-party system? He ran as although he...
Let's go back just a little bit to get more context of the question here.
Cornell, you were a surrogate for Bernie Sanders. In fact, in 2016, he chose you as one of the people to write the Democratic Party platform. Have you talked to him about your campaign, you deciding to go outside the two-party system? He ran although he is an independent and a socialist, he ran inside the Democratic Party. And has he given you advice?
No, I haven't talked to Bernie recently. We just did a wonderful event based on his wonderful book with Brother John Nichols there in Brooklyn, Academy of Music. We had a wonderful time, Sister Jane and my beloved wife, Anahita. We had a wonderful time with him. And Bernie will always be my brother. I've got a forever love for that brother. We just have disagreements. I don't think he would be surprised, though, because I, of course, supported the Greens. Sister Jill Stein, after I supported him, just like I'd go back to the great Ralph Nader. And a lot of people try to view those two as spoilers. They're not spoilers at all. You had mediocre neoliberal candidates who could not galvanize the public, so you don't blame it on the weaker parties. And we will never actually be able to deal with the escalating fascism in America with milquetoast neoliberalism. You just end up with caretaker government. You end up with postponing the collapse of democracy, as my dear brother Jeff Stout says. Well, you have to get at the roots of fascism, which means I'm going to Trump country, Sister Amy. I'm going to talk to those white brothers and talk to those white sisters and say, quit scapegoating the most vulnerable. Let us confront the most powerful. I don't have a minute for any kind of xenophobia, but at the same time, I know you're catching hell. I know many of you have been.
You hear that? You hear what he just said there? Which makes it, I almost want to cry that he's running with the MPP. See if you catch what he says here. See if you catch what he says.
Scapegoating the most vulnerable. Let us confront the most.
Oops. Now, listen to his approach of how he would talk to the white working class versus what the boutique left, NATO left does to talk to the white working class. Just call them racist. Listen to what he would do.
I'm going to talk to those white brothers and talk to those white sisters and say, quit scapegoating the most vulnerable. Let us confront the most powerful. I don't have a minute for any kind of xenophobia, but at the same time, I know you're catching hell.
Isn't that what RBN advocates for? We're called Red Blonde Alliance if we're advocating for that. That's the exact point. And that's what the Black Panther. I don't got time for none of your racism, but if you want to team up, you get the white working class together and we get the black working class together. Let's do this. That's coalition building. It's saying, I know you have a difference. I don't care about your difference. Let's team up on the shit we do agree on. And let's take these motherfuckers out. That's not what the professional managerial class is saying. They're saying, ew, icky, Trump supporters, they're racist, they're transphobes. You see the difference? And to see why it makes it even more heartbreaking that he's running with the MPP, because this sort of approach to the white working class is what's going to get something done. The white working class doesn't need to hear, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're this. They just need to hear, listen, I don't care about the differences. You believe that? I ain't with that shit. But let's go take out these capitalists that's making your life a living hell too. That's the message.
Hell, I know many of you have been losers in corporate globalization. You've been pushed against the wall by big monopolies and oligopolies. You have difficulty trying to engage in any kind of unionization. You have to transform and transpose and filter your fears through different means rather than following a neo-fascist Pied Piper. We got to be able to speak to these folk directly and as fellow citizens, and I plan to do that. Now, of course,
you can exit if you don't like the conversation about MPP. I will always have a focus on MPP until Nick Braun is gone. But if you don't like the conversation about it, you're more than welcome. You're actually encouraged to exit stage left.
Of course, I come out of the black tradition. And so I've got to wrestle with my own black bourgeoisie. I got to wrestle with my own black
Yeah, you
politics.
do, because there is some critiques about his own black bourgeoisie and the way that he's calling, for example, like she's some sort of freedom fighter, and when she's spewing Russiagate shit, also when he's calling people like what do you say, John Trump or somebody he worked with, when he was mentioning Bernie Sanders, like these people aren't good people, and he's coming from a Christian background like my mom, so he's trying to see the good in everybody. That's him, and it's not me. But we need to be able to call a spade a spade. We need to be able to call what it is.
Politicians who reinforce the neoliberal hegemony in the black community, and I got to do it lovingly, but I'm going to do it in a very direct way that they in many ways have given up on the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. They've become intoxicated too often with the felicities of.
So what I recommend, I'm going to stop here so we can get to the other topics. We should start a movement to push to draft. I don't even know what it's called, to draft Cornel West away from MPP. There just needs to be a change. And to me, if he's running MPP, if you're going to take on the task of building this party, there needs to be a movement to get Nick Brana out of leadership and his father. So there needs to be a push to get Nick Brana out of leadership and his father if you're going to stay in the MPP, or there needs to be a movement to get him into the Green Party nominating process, or independent, or run as an independent.